Hello and welcome. This is Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I'm so excited that you're here for the Man Panel 3. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Back by popular demand. And we also have a returning guest here with us today who I'm so excited to have back. He's also here again at your request because he was chosen as one of our top guest experts from last year's Man Panel. So I'm so excited to welcome a returning guest, Gregg Michaelson. Welcome, Gregg.
How you doing, Michelle? Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
So happy to have you back again this year. So before we get into what I know will be a really fun and juicy conversation, I wanted to share just a little bit more about you to the ladies.
Sure.
And officially introduce you.
Right.
Gregg rules the dating advice genre, having sold 250,000 books. I mean, come on, Gregg, woohoo. That's so impressive. He's a multiple #1 best-selling author, dating coach, and life coach. Being both gives him an incredible advantage with the people he touches. He helps women succeed in both their dating and everyday lives, and encourages his readers to contact him through his books and get answers for free. Gregg has a motto, which is build yourself and he will come. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. You can see some of Gregg's many books in the background there behind him. And I'm just amazed at what you're doing out there, Gregg. So welcome back. So happy you're here.
Thank you very much. And I want to say, I want everyone listening to thank yourself for actually taking the time to reach out to pros like Michelle and I, and really give yourself a pat on the back. I know this whole dating thing is tough, especially when you're over 40, and it can lead to frustration. But the fact that you're reaching out to pros, and some things you'll like about what we say, some things you might not. But it's all good. And I find sometimes it's just the one thing that you'll grab from one of these interviews. Maybe a lot of things you won't, but it might be a one thing, and that could be the thing that dominoes you into doing all the right things, getting excited about it, and ultimately finding, a great guy. So that said.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Gregg, because I think that's so important. The fact that you're here speaks well of you and what you want in your life and your love life. And it's true that even just one idea or one nuance of something can make a huge difference in your overall experience with dating and men. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So Gregg, I'm curious, why have you chosen as your theme, build yourself and he will come?
Okay, so what I've found is it's very easy for us to spew all this information to women. Go meet a guy, do this, do that. But if you don't have the confidence, or you don't believe there are good men out there, or you're jaded from your past relationship, you just can't do that. And you might have all the confidence in your everyday life. But if you've been, for example, married for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, whatever, you've given up on a lot of things that you used to do. Your hobbies and passions just, went away because you're taking care of kids, you're taking care of your husband, and you kind of lost yourself a little bit. And because of that, I don't think it's a good idea to go right out there. You're almost putting the cart before the horse. There needs to be a time where you settle back in and you start to rediscover yourself. Build yourself is what I say on my website. And that means, who am I all over again? What did I used to enjoy? You start to take what I call life inventory. And this is sort of the dating coach in me. You start to think about, what are my values, my beliefs all over again? And it's really a gut check, because that person in your life, may or may not have led you down a road that, you didn't want to be on. And so it's time to get back at it. And this could take, it's going to be more than a month. It's going to take 3 months, 6 months, a year. But when you do it, now things just, like I say before, domino into place. And it just, I always talk about having a great story, and we all have a great story, but a lot of it has been put on a shelf because of, our, past relationship or what have you. So it's time to get that story again. And, maybe you used to be into diving or photography or whatever, but that's part of your story. And maybe your story needs a little shoring up, well, this is the time to do it. And when you start to build yourself, you by default start to attract a man. And think about it. I remember being single and going out on a date. And it's just like I dated a lot of beautiful women, and the looks didn't do it. It's like you look at this woman, and a man looks at a woman, and a woman looks at a man, and they say, what does she have to offer? And when you have a story, and it's like, wow, I dived in Barbados and yada yada yada. Or I train horses, or I can, make, candles, but you're passionate about it, kind of like how I am. It just makes you interesting. And now I'm attracted to you. So I always tell women to kind of take a break and back up and start to concentrate on yourself and not the man. The man is the cherry on the top. Okay. And if you go after the man too soon, then all of a sudden you're going to look for validation all the time. And your happiness is going to be determined by how you're treated by him. And if we can get you into a phase where you're happy, because basically happiness is just following your beliefs, and values and pursuing your dreams. And when you do that, everything changes. Now the pressure is off to meet a man. You're going to meet a man because you're doing kickboxing. Or you're going on vacation with your girlfriend, you're a single wing woman, and you're getting exposure. And so a lot of people just go about it, backwards, if you will, Michelle, so that was a long-winded answer.
Oh, I love that introduction. And would it be okay, Greg, if we kind of revisit a couple of things that you said there, just to highlight them? So one thing that stood out for me was I felt like you were giving the advice that if you're coming out of a long-term relationship or marriage or that sort of thing, rather than just diving right back in and going right out there to try to replace whoever is no longer in your life, there's wisdom in really taking some time for yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to maybe understand some of the things that you learned from that relationship. I mean, I'm maybe adding a little bit to what you said, but
no, for good reason. Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, and what happens when you do that? A lot of times, you'll be a woman will be in a relationship, and they'll date this type of man, and they will there might be contempt, and if they get out there too soon, the pendulum swings, and they go to, it's like, okay, I dated a couch potato. Now I'm going to date this guy that is like loves to rock climb, and it was just the opposite. And a lot of times he's just as bad for different reasons. So you really need to, it's funny, I just put out a bestseller called Night Moves, which is the science of getting a man to fall in love with you. And one of my first chapters is I talk about, soybeans, that we're all a bunch of commodities. And it's true. We look at each other almost, we look at it and say, what is in it for me? What do you bring to the table? Okay, I do it. And women should do the same thing. It's like, what do you bring to the table? Why should I date you? And that's part of what I'm talking about, is that great story. It's like, okay, you date me because my financials are in order. I'm a decision maker. I'm a positive person. I'm a busy person. I've got opinions on things because I've got that confidence that's come from being busy and pursuing these hobbies and passions. So it naturally starts to attract a man. And then, it's funny, in all my books, I'll talk about challenge and mystery. And, to a lot of women, that's just like, yeah, philosophical crap. And challenge and mystery is so easy. It's because you've got so many things going on, you're mysterious, okay? It's like, I don't even understand how you can volunteer at the cat shelter and then do, kickboxing the next night, and you have no time for me. And challenge. You know, it's like, I am born to chase. Let me chase you, at least at the beginning. I interview older couples and I ask them, and the guy says, you know, I've never caught her.
That's cute.
Which is precious, you know. But challenge and mystery, you don't have to work on challenge and mystery. You just have to work on yourself, and you become challenging and mysterious. And, you know, it's perceived equity. You know, when I say my soybean chapter, you know, being a commodity, it's perceived equity. You know, what is your equity compared to mine? And the higher you make your equity, the more guys you're going to attract. And when you meet someone on the same level, because let's face it, you don't want to be dating someone down here. Of course, if your confidence is low, you will date someone down here, and that's not healthy. If your confidence is here, you'll attract and date someone on the same level. And now love becomes so much easier, you know, to attract that type of man. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to you, not him. He's easy, believe it or not, you know, to finding the guy. I always think, and no one's going to believe this, is actually the easier part. It's not it can be the fun part too, when you've done these things, you know, because, I just get excited about, you know, working on yourself, you know, first, and then getting the man, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's so key, because then you're really centered in knowing who you are, and you're living this rich, full life. And then, like you said, having the man is more like just having that whipped cream and cherry on top, so to speak.
He's a free prize on the top shelf, but he does not come first. You know what I mean? You got to work yourself up to it. You know, you got to throw the darts first to get that furry prize. But it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing that, you know, that so many people will try to put the man first, and, you know, it's just not the way, you know, the way to do it, you know?
Yeah, because you're going to attract a totally different level of person, a totally different kind of person, when you're really centered in knowing what you bring to the table, and you're living that rich, full life, right?
Right. And Michelle, another thing comes into play too, and it's about boundaries. You know, you don't have to worry about, you know, the questions I get, because I encourage people through my books, and they'll say, Gregg, I met a great guy. When do I sleep with him? She's all worried about, you know, when I should sleep with him. And I'm like, if you're worried about that, then you're not ready for this. You sleep with him when he's proven himself through my series of tests, okay? But if your boundaries are low because you haven't done, you know, the steps you should be doing, then you don't know these answers because your boundaries are low, okay? And then that, let's face it, there are a ton of terrible guys out there, you know? I mean, it's just, you know, they're just millions of them. But I get it. But now you've got to weed them out. And by building yourself, having a great story, you know, having these things in place, now your boundaries are defined. And to me, you know, if I'm a high value guy, I want to see these boundaries. Sure, I might try to, you know, test you and try to sleep with you too early or whatever. But when you say no to a high value guy, that's powerful. That guy is going to want you more. He's testing you too. You know, I always say that phrase, you know, nothing comes without a fight. And that's how guys want to you know, date their forever woman. There has to be a fight. There has to be a chase in my mind. And yes, a little bit of a game, but that game gets less and less. And when you know how to play it, and when you have to play it, you know, you learn too. But a guy just wants to have that. He needs you to prove that you're worth it. And that means you've got to set boundaries and make me work hard, you know? And that's where people get mixed up. And so many women who just go out trying to find a guy, they'll find one guy and they'll try to mold him, shape him into the guy that they want him to be. You know, she'll be like a horse with blinders on, and the friends and mom will say, no, he's no good. And, you know, a woman won't care because she doesn't have choice and comparison, which is another big thing in her life. Mm-hmm. And again, by backing up the truck, working on you and embracing being single, it's okay. And then following up, you know, with hobbies and passions. Now all of a sudden you got guys, good guys, that you're not meeting at, online necessarily, not that that's bad, but you're meeting in person that aren't out, on a Saturday night where you don't want to be, trying to, pick up a woman, so it
Mm-hmm.
all kind of falls in place, but you've got to get into that mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, and those boundaries are a lot easier to maintain when you're really centered in knowing who you are and knowing your own value. And like you said, having that great story, recognizing what you bring to the table. And I think
Exactly.
that's one of the things that makes a woman really stand out from the other women that a man might be comparing her with or have had experience with.
Right. And think about it this way. Here's a great test to know if you're ready to date. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's always nerves and things like that. But if you're across the table from a guy and you're looking at him, you're throwing questions out to him, testing him, thinking if he's good enough for you, then you're doing it right. Okay. And it shouldn't be the other way around. And so much of the time it is. You don't want to be like, oh my God, am I making a good first impression? If you're you and you're acting the way you want to act and you're living your life by your values, you don't have to worry about changing who you are. Whereas if your boundaries are low and you've just come out of a 10-year relationship and you're beaten up, you don't know who you are. You might try to be what you think he wants you to be. And that just will lead down the same road, which will make you even more, jaded, and the dominoes fall the other way, So I guess this is where, Michelle, this is where the life coach, backing up a little bit. My dad was a life coach when they didn't even have life coaches. So yeah, so when I was getting, my friends at, 6 years old were getting fed pancakes and French toast, I was getting served affirmations and goal setting, So I lived this stuff. I didn't even know what was happening to me, but I visualized what was going to happen, in my next hockey game. My dad taught me this. Meditation is huge. I'm not good at it, but I'm working on it. That's my weakness. Goal settings, affirmations, which we always, make fun of because that Saturday Night Live skit way back, dating myself. But if you've got an evil voice that's in your head, and it very well might be, you've got to get rid of it. You have got to counter it. Your conscious is only a tiny bit part of your brain. Picture of it as the keyboard of the computer. But it dictates everything to your subconscious. If you're feeding your subconscious, I'll never find a man, I'm ugly, I'm overweight, I'm just average, then that's how you will live. And you've got to change that narrative. And when you do, it's an amazing concept. And I grew up on it, so I don't know anything else than it. But now, not only in meeting a man, because that becomes your goal, and your goal isn't, I'm going to meet a man, it's got to be smart. I won't get into that. But it needs to be, okay, when? Tell me more. I'm your subconscious mind. I want to know when. I want to know what he smells like. I want to know how tall he is. I want to know more things. And when you visualize and you do the things I say, you get rid of that negative Nelly always telling you these bad thoughts. And you say, no, I'm going to have a man in my life, a quality man in 6 months. And okay, so now it's the T in smart, it's time sensitive. And, you start to define what he's going to look like. Use your senses, smell what he's going to look like, feel, touch, everything. And now you start to, it's like the law of attraction, you really start to do the things, sometimes subconsciously, to find that man, and it's just like, and then you can plug it into everything in your life as far as making more money, your career, losing weight, whatever you want to do, I didn't set out to, and I don't want to get off track here, but I got laughed at when, my family, I never read a book. I read Charlotte's Web.
That's a classic.
And all my sisters, 3 older sisters, were readers, and they kind of laughed at me, probably as they should, when I said I want to be a writer and start helping women and write books. And And I actually use that as motivation, people laughing at me. Now, it's my family, but that's okay. They were looking out for me, or my friends too. But that just motivated me. It made me set the goal. It's like, I'm going to sell 250,000 books. I'm going to sell 500,000 books. And it's the same thing with women. It's a plug and play system. And when you're trained to do it, it makes life easy, you know? And you can say, if your goal is to meet the man of your dreams, then you plug it in, just like anything else, and you will get to that goal. You'll fail on the way, but failing is a part of, winning, I mean, look at the Olympics. It's just like, how many people, trying to do some flip or acrobatic thing, dumped 3,000 times before they did, but, they got there because not getting there wasn't in their subconscious. It was like, it's going to happen, So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we create in our minds first. We create what happens in our lives first. And that powerful, our minds are so much more powerful than we sometimes understand. And when we create that reality in our minds and our subconscious began working on creating that in our outward world. But like you said, if we're constantly listening to the negative Nelly, as you called it, it's next to impossible for our mind to create that. Whatever we're focusing on is expanding and growing.
Right. And Michelle, like, I'll get, a reader, I get like 50 emails a day, from readers in my books. And I had a reader yesterday that said, Gregg, I've given up. And it was just negative. And I came back to her, and sometimes a little harsh maybe, but, I say, we'll say, Jennifer, Jennifer, you're right. You're never going to find a guy. And this is why. And I listed the things, and she looked at it like, God, I guess I was kind of negative. I said, yeah, you've convinced yourself that you're not going to meet that guy. So you're not going to try like you should try. You're not going to get the exposure that you're going to, need to get. You're going to just, sit there and say, why I can't. And, so you do what you tell your mind you're going to do. I mean, it's really as simple as that, and you can change it. Yeah. And, when we're little, I always think, you look at a little kid, I was at Dunkin' Donuts this morning, this little kid cut in front of him. There was a line, everyone's pissed off trying to get their coffee, and this little kid just ran right in front of him, and he had the wrong donut, It didn't care, excuse me, whatever. It's just a little kid, he doesn't know, and walked up and got his right donut. And everyone laughed, and, cute kid, whatever. But you just look at this kid, and he hasn't been messed up yet. You know what I mean? Society hasn't told him, that that's not okay, or later, when he's our age, he'll wait at the end of the line possibly, or say, excuse me, all the way to the front because he's, he or she is worried about her confidence, whatever. And it's probably not a great example, but it's just amazing how society just beats the crap out of us.
Yeah, or we might even settle for the wrong donut.
Yeah, right. But perfect analogy. I should have had you do this whole analogy. But you're right. You want that Boston cream, and you get the the glaze, and you're like, all right, this is all I can do. I'll go back to my seat. But yeah, and I don't want to get philosophical, but this stuff gets me excited. So you really need to think about in terms of you, and not the guy. The guy will come, and he'll come fast, and you'll be able to weed him out. You'll have the skills to check him off. It's like, okay, does he met his I always say you've got to think with your head and not your heart, and that's one of the toughest things for women to do. And I know it's easy for me to say, and not being a woman, I get frustrated because it's like, why can't you do that? Because it's just so hard, the boyish grin, or he's very chivalrous, on the first date or whatever. But you cannot get past that. He has to pass tests. He has to meet your friends, and you need to walk away and let your friends interview him and ask him the hard questions. He needs to eventually meet your family. You need to meet his friends and see where he is on the pecking order, and what are his friends like? Do they respect him? Do they not? Are they all checking out women? And I don't care what age, or they disrespectful of their wives. You know, so you can learn so much, but you can only learn if you're, you know, using your head and not your heart. And that's one of the most important reasons why you don't sleep with a man too early, because now you've lost it. You know, now your heart is kicked in gear, and you know you want him to be that person. You know, generalizing, but yeah.
So I still thank you for that, and I still want to refer back to one other thing that you said that caught my attention right at the beginning, because I know that for a lot of the women here, they may be a little bit more mature, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so they may not feel like physically they're at their peak attractiveness. You know, we're not forever 21 anymore.
Nope. Yep.
And so one thing that caught my attention was you said that you had dated personally a lot of beautiful women, but that it wasn't just the physical, it wasn't just the looks that really fascinated you or kept you around for an extended period of time. And yet I believe that's such a big perception for so many women. And they feel like they're competing with younger women or more attractive women and comparing themselves constantly in a negative way. And I just wanted you to speak to that a little bit more, because I just really feel like the women would appreciate hearing a little more about that from a man.
Great question. You know, it's funny. I was that single guy for a long, long time, and I was that guy. You know, I was, you know, younger. Okay, so I can vouch personally for this. I've got a great blog post on my website, and I start off like, I think my subject line when I send it out to my readers is, you know, ladies, you're out of luck. Guys only want to date younger women, okay? And everyone opens this up like, you're right, Gregg. You know, it's like, you know, they're mad and angry. But I dated, you know, someone very much younger than me, thinking that this, you know, was the answer. Like, oh my goodness, how could I not let her move in and you know, like a trophy wife. And I was immature. I thought that was, you know, the answer, and I was so wrong. And the guys, rest assured that the guys that you want to date, the mature guys, the good guys, they are not going for looks. Now, yes, you've got to, you know, take care of yourself. I always, you know, tell women one of the, you know, they don't necessarily want to hear it, but to me, you need to take care of your body. You don't have to be a gymnast. You don't have to be doing P90X or whatever, but you know, you need to take care of yourself. And again, it comes back to that perceived equity. You know, if you're dating a guy, you don't want to date a guy with a huge, you know, belly maybe, or maybe that's fine. But if you don't, then you shouldn't, you know, be, you know, 20, 30 pounds overweight if that's what you want. But I learned the hard way that, and now, you know, it's like, you know, I backed up and said, wow, it's like, looks are initially important. Yes. Okay. And guys will, 50-year-old guys, me, you know, will still look at the hottest, you know, woman in the room, but that's our animal instincts. It doesn't mean, you know, we want to sleep with them or whatever, but we will look, you know, and again, that's part of understanding men, you know, if you have the confidence, as long as they're not ridiculous. Now there's a line here. But you start to realize, and I realized real quick, that it's the personality. I've got to date this woman, and, you know, I'm going to marry her, potentially have kids. And she's got to, you know, the personality has got to be there, you know, and, and looks are fleeting, both with men and women, you know, but good guys do not want to date, you know, hot young chicks. Now we'll have middle-age crisis is just, is just a 50-year-old guy, you know, buying a yellow Corvette thinking he's bored and, you know, thinks he can still date a 20-year-old. That's a different story. That's because he's bored. And there are things you can do to not let that happen. Again, challenge, mystery, always have the social life outside of his, you know, and to keep things crazy so he won't stray like that. But that we're starting to get into understanding men, which is another exciting realm in itself. But to your point, you can't be worried about that. There are a ton of guys, and remember, I'm on the other side too. There are a ton of guys my age. I'm 50, geez, I lost count here, 55, going on 56. There are a ton of good men out there that do not want this younger woman. And if they do, and I've got some friends that do, but they are not mature guys. I would not set you up, Michelle, with that type of man, you know. But on the other hand, the guys have the same problem. You know, they're jaded. They just went through something. They're not ready to go out. They're online. They're not doing the things they need to do to meet up with wonderful women like you. So I'm battling on the other side, you know, trying to get people out there. And you say, well, Greg, that's online dating. And yeah, it is and it's not, because online dating is a jungle in itself, because there's so many people that, you know, can be virtual, and it just messes up the system for the good people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to stick to the traditional means and supplement online dating if you're ready for it and can take it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the way I like to think of it too is that, and this is something I tell some of the women that I work with that bring up this concern when they say, I'm competing with all of these younger women, and the men online, you know, are saying they want women in their 30s and they're in their 50s. I always say, you're really not competing with those women, because the guy
Not,
that's looking for the woman in the 30s is not going to choose you. You're not competing with them. And
no,
you wouldn't want to be with him anyway, because you're just not in a parallel place in your lives.
exactly.
And so it's really not that you're competing with them. And I think that comes back kind of full circle to what we've been talking about here, about you building yourself, you knowing who you are, you having that great story to tell, and living that amazing life, so that the right person is attracted to who you are in full. And yes, of course, attraction is important. It
Yes.
would be a lie for us to sit here and say it's not attraction to men. It's important to women. I mean, I have so
Sure.
many women that say to me, I have to have attraction. That's essential to me. So we're not saying that chemistry is not important, but it's kind of keeping that in perspective, I think.
Exactly. And don't think that I'm just, you know, it's easy for women listening saying, Greg, why do I have to do everything? You know, you gotta remember, I'm on the other side too. I'm doing these videos, you know, to guys saying, clean up, you know, clean up your act, guys too, you know. You've got to get that. Yes, attraction is very important, but you can be doing everything right. But if you don't have the exposure, you've got to get this exposure. And if it's just online dating, you could get, you know, unless you're doing things my way, you know, you're going to get frustrated probably, you know, because you're going to get, you know, people that are just, you know, they're just, you know, not good people. But when you start to get exposure, and that'll be one of the first things I do, it's like, okay, tell me, I want you to keep like a log. And sometimes I'll give them a homework, like, you know, boring as it may sound. What are your actual times where you're getting exposure? And by that, I don't mean at work. You know, you're at work and you talk to some guy or whatever, you know what I mean, that you thought's cute. No, I mean real exposure. You're going out of your way, you know, to meet men, or put yourself in a position to meet men. Now, if you're doing it my way, you're not out there alone, scary type of thing. You are meeting wing women. You're going to yoga classes first and finding single women, you know, or meetup.com. There are multitude of ways to do it. But you're meeting single wing women that are fun, and they're there. Going out with your married friends just isn't enough. You know, you can't. They want to lecture you about, you know, everything you're doing wrong. They want to talk about Tony and, you know, whatever, and it just doesn't help you. So if you concentrate on, you know, a wing woman, you know, it sounds odd, and it can be a little difficult in itself. But when you have a fun person that you can go to, you know, Barbados with or whatever, or do things with, now it just, everything's so much more fun. You work together wherever you go. It's just your confidence, you know, grows between the two of you, and you can help each other out, so, but you've got to get exposure, Michelle. Like I say, you can't have one choice in your life. You've got to get out there, and the only way that I see doing it, other than online dating, is kill two birds with one stone. Pursue your hobbies and passions. I always say brainstorm quick as you can. I don't care if you want to go to Mars. Give me 50, 100 things. Sleep on it. Add to it. Whatever. Go back in 2 days and say, okay, that's good. Pick 10. Pick 10. And then, sleep on that. And then grab 1 or 2 and sign up. This is part of goal setting. This is the short-term goal to how I'm going to meet a great guy right here. Pick 1 or 2. You might hate it. You might go, rock climbing and, or hiking, and you don't like it, whatever. You had a great experience. You got outside of your comfort zone. You built, you gave yourself another confidence notch on your belt. You became more interesting. Then grab another one. But you have to do this every week. You've got to dedicate time, and not necessarily, compartmentalizing everything on your weekend. And then before you know it, you've got this exposure. Now we've got some guys. It's like, well, I got this, they bet this, yada, yada. And now we start working on those individuals and how they mesh. And if this guy doesn't make the cut, bye-bye. And you have no problem with it. He doesn't, you're not depressed. Your confidence isn't, beat up because he didn't meet your criteria, because your boundaries were such. It's like, no, he's not for me. And you've got choice A, B, C, D. And, it just becomes so much easier,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to create opportunities for yourself to see and be seen by high quality men if you want to meet one, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got to get to the charities. I always like charities and wine tasting, if you're, drink or like wine at all, because it's just a higher quality, type of man. Again, I'm generalizing here, of course. But, we're not going to go to the bar scene anymore. I mean, I get at a piano bar or something like that. That's fine. Enjoy it with your friends, But to me, you've got to look for those charities, those wine tastings, or those ski trip, or whatever you're into. And it doesn't have to be out. Always say outdoors things, but it can be anything you want, then everything starts to fall in place when you start to do these things and embrace being single. It's really about embracing being single and living by your values and beliefs, and checking off your bucket list. Think of it as a bucket list, just, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. You're going to love something and then get good at it. I've got a client now. A lot of my clients turn into good friends. She's got into diving. Okay, she got out of a long-term relationship. I stopped her from pursuing all these loser guys she was going after. She's a psychiatrist. I mean, very high-value woman living in New York, and she got into diving, and because she used to be in it. She used to go diving with her ex, and she said, "Screw it, I'm gonna." We got her confidence up to the point that she went diving alone. I couldn't believe it, and now she's into diving. And she's meeting guys that are, that are diving, and it's wonderful. And she's got choices, and, we're reviewing the choices, and it's fun. You know what I mean? It's fun for me. It's fun for her. It's like, yeah, how did Eric behave on that date? It's sort of fun. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, when a woman is pursuing and participating in something she's passionate about and she enjoys, she has sort of a glow, or she's in her joy, she's in her natural joy. That is incredibly attractive. I've had a lot of men tell me that's incredibly attractive.
It is. And if you're shy, it works out great. And if your confidence is a little low, it works out great too, because you're doing something you're both, enjoy doing. You both signed up for this activity, whatever it might be. And you're doing it together. So you automatically have something in common and something to talk about. It makes things very easy. Mm-hmm. And then, Michelle, there's a whole nother layer to this that I haven't mentioned. It's build yourself, understand men, find love. And the understanding men, which is, we'll take a whole nother video. But once you have those things that I've talked about in place, then you move into another category. Now, you can be dating men as you're into this category, but when you understand us and you understand how we love and you understand challenge and mystery and what's going in our head and how you can keep us pursuing, you know how to text us. You know, one of my big books, somewhere around here, I don't know, Power Texting Men. You know, when you know how to text a man, you know, all these things fall in place because you're starting to understand how our brain works. And now it becomes easier, okay? In my Night Moves, my latest, The Science of Falling in Love, red lipstick attracts a man more than most anything you wear. And very few women know that. You know, they're shopping for shoes forever when they should be, you know, wearing that red lipstick. There's 5 things that need to happen with anyone. There's a study done by Dr. Perper back in the 70s where he analyzed thousands of people. And there are 5 things that have to happen for a person to basically walk away and have, you know, on a date or be together. And it's just amazing. And you can make these things happen. And the 5 things, if you want to know real quick: nonverbal. You've got to look across the room and smile at someone, okay? Verbal. There has to be someone saying, and there's different level of talking, but there has to be someone saying something like, "Hi, you like Piano Bar too? I mean, what a great song, whatever." Number 3, there has to be turn. When I say turn, there has to be the turning of the head and then usually the shoulders, you know, for the people to come together and then they engage in another level of talk. Okay, 4, touch. Dr. Perper said there has to be touch, and it's a fleeting touch. It might be, he might touch you on the shoulder, or you might touch him on the shoulder. And again, you can do this, you know, on your own. You might just glance his hand. And then the 5th thing that has to happen is synchronicity. And it happens naturally. But again, if a woman knows, you know, that about this science, you know, when a guy drinks a drink, a woman will drink her drink too. Or the band will play a song, and, you know, a louder set, and you'll both turn, and then you'll turn back. And these 5 things, this is research, this isn't just me talking, these 5 things had to happen. And now you start to understand this stuff, and now you can rank higher than this woman next to you because you know this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got the confidence to execute this stuff. And now you've got a huge advantage. You know, forget the looks, you know, you've got the huge advantage over this beautiful woman, you know, that, you know, it just doesn't have any inner game, you know, if you will. So,
yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's great stuff. And I really appreciate that you gave us that little cherry on top of
about all different tangents here. I get so excited.
It's great because I think you're empowering women. You're giving women something tangible that they can walk away with, that it's not just all about focusing on finding the man. There's a lot you can be doing in your own life to build yourself, build your life, have a great story to tell, and then you'll be attracting a higher level, a higher quality man anyway. So this is really empowering, and I really appreciate what you've shared.
And real quick, Michelle, I know we're getting the end here. And if you look at the women, some women and men, but women will just have it. You know, you probably know someone in your life that it's just like, why does she's so bubbly and happy, and she always gets the dates, and it's not that she's gorgeous necessarily at all. You know what I mean? It's just because she is bubbly. She is positive. She's busy. She's got the right attitude. She's not jaded. Guys know when you're jaded, you know, and that's what I'm talking about. You can you can become that woman, you know, that you hate. Challenge yourself to be that woman that you hate because she's so bubbly and positive, and, you know, the glass is always half full. And guess what? She gets the guys because she is that person, and you can be that person. You know, if you're not already, or you're somewhere on your way, or you don't know how to, you know, get to that level, or you're starting from scratch, you can be that person. I don't care if you're 65, you know, 70, I don't care, you know. Yeah,
in fact, you just reminded me of something. Back when I was single and in my early 40s, I was in this big singles organization here in our city, and there were these two sisters there, Gregg, and you just reminded me of them. And they weren't the best looking women. I mean, they groomed themselves nice and they dressed nice, but they weren't really beauties per se. But the men were just falling at their feet. I mean, it was like a race for these men to ask them out. And I would look at these women and I would think, what is it that they have? And I've thought about that and remembered it for years because I just was bamboozled by it at the time. But as I look back now, with now this hindsight and this new perspective that I have from doing this work now for a number of years, I recognize, first of all, they were women that really knew their own worth and their own value and really came across like, hey, I'm all that in a bag of chips, you know? I mean, that's just how they came across. And they did those 5 things you talked about with men. They had that way of making a man feel really connected to them when they interacted with them.
Yeah. And then we can get into, my book, The Social Tigress, is about how to behave at a social venue. And this gets so fun. And just as you say, these girls, because you want to stand out, okay? So maybe you're not the most beautiful woman there. Who cares? Screw that. But you can stand out. You need to stand out. So how are you going to do that? And that becomes fun. And like the women you talk about, I'll bet you that, they were smiling. Mm-hmm. Guys are naturally, people are attracted to people having fun. When people are laughing, you will naturally be attracted to people that are having fun, and not in an annoying way, but just laughing at each other, their own jokes. And you can use this to your advantage. You can do it alone, but it's better with a group of women, but you need to, now body language comes into it. You need to be square. So many women will be huddled like kittens at a venue, and you can't be like that. You can be talking and engaging and laughing at each other, but you're square to the room. You always allow a place where a man needs a home base, and you always are square to the room. You want to have a space next to you or in front of you or a chair next to you. And if you do, men will come up to you, but you've got to create the atmosphere, the ambiance. You've got to make it safe for a man. And then again, we got to start getting into the science of love and smiling. And the different things you can do in eye contact, flight or fright, eye contact, heavy eye contact, believe it or not, most women can't do it, but you need to do it. Make a guy look away. And if a guy looks back within like 10, 20 seconds, there's something about you that he likes, and if he doesn't look back, you do it to another guy, I mean, it's just exciting stuff. But these 2 women you talk about, they probably didn't know any of the stuff that I'm talking about. They, like you say, they're just happy with themselves. They're comfortable in their own shoes, another book of mine. They're just comfortable, and they're happy. And they don't care if they meet another guy or not, because there'll be another guy that'll walk up and talk to them because they are just, showing their stuff and separating themselves from, the herd of other, people, so.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. And as Gregg and I said at the beginning too, the fact that you're here shows that you are a woman of high value already. It's just you may have some opportunity to kind of up-level your game here a little bit or try some of these tips or ideas so that you're conveying it more. And I think that's really empowering.
And the women that will say, well, I've never set a goal in my life or something like that. Well, you know what? You just set a goal. You listen to, hopefully this video, but, all these other pros, some of the best in the world. And I don't care, maybe an hour, maybe 15 minutes. But you didn't know it maybe. You didn't write it down as I would like you to write it down. But you just completed a goal. You did something, a baby step on your way to meeting the guy of your dreams. And so pat yourself on the back. You are a goal setter. You are a goal, completer, for just doing that. And, so take that to the bank, so yeah.
Yeah. So Gregg, I know you have many books and you've mentioned just a few of them. And like I said, wow, I'm so impressed with what you've done with your books. It's so amazing. And I know you're helping so many people out there with them. So thank you for the work you're doing in the world, first of all. And thank you for being a part of the event. And I also know that you have a really nice gift for all of the women who are participating in this event, which is one of your books, right?
Yes, yes. And just so you know, you guys write my books. Yeah, I write them. I mean, I'm a terrible writer, but I write the books. Thank goodness for an editor. But I talk to women, and you guys tell me through your questions what you need written. I'm not writing these things just yada yada. I'm writing them because you've asked. So, my gift, Michelle, and to everyone out there, it's called Own Your Tomorrow. 14 Steps to Prepare for Love. Okay, it's a full-blown book, best-selling book, and I think you're gonna like it because it's me being unorthodox as I always am, and it's gonna give you some things, some actionable items. Okay, you're gonna see challenge and mystery in the back of the book, but your first 14 steps are gonna give you a whole sense of what I've been talking about today. Things that you can get yourself in a relaxed state, start to understand, yourself, your vision, your take life inventory type of thing. So I think you'll really, really like it. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so much for that generous gift. And ladies, you can access that by clicking on the link here below the video that you've been watching or the audio you've been listening to in either case. And Gregg's gift will be available throughout the rest of the event, but I know you're going to want it, so don't miss out. Make sure you click on it right now and secure your copy. And I know you'll want to stay connected with Gregg because we have just barely scratched the surface of all that he has to share. As you can tell, Gregg and I could probably talk for So we are grateful for your presence, and we hope that you will continue to tune in to the series, and also be sure to check out the VIP package below after you get Gregg's gift. So Gregg and I are both sending you lots of love and best wishes, and look forward to connecting with you more. Bye-bye for now.